Hello, my friends. Brett Pattison coming at you from the financial capital of the West, joined by the chairman.
How you doing, Brett?
Oh, I'm doing great, brother.
Good for you.
Although it's been a sad week.
Has it?
Well, yeah,
Well, yeah, it has.
because of
Sad couple weeks.
Charlie Munger. Was that 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it was last
Yeah.
week.
Charlie Munger, the vice chair at Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's right-hand man, best friend since 1958, partner since 1978. Passed away at the age of 99 years old.
Yeah.
You, Dan, and Spencer went to Omaha and saw the last annual meeting with both Buffett and Charlie Munger side by side,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Which was great.
That's one of the reasons you went, is because those guys are getting old.
We could have said that the last 20 years.
I know, but 99?
He was 99. Charlie was going to be 100 years old on January 1st.
Wow.
And
just shy.
We talked, I mean, the plan was you were going to go with us. You couldn't, you had other obligations, family obligations, and couldn't make it.
Yeah.
But the plan was to go because, hey, you're 99 years old. Every day's a gift, right?
Absolutely.
And so you never know. And we thought, now's the time to go. I mean, we should have gone the year before that. I mean, 97, you could argue that too. And yeah, we went.
You timed it perfect.
We're glad we went. It was great. And I've been to several Berkshire meetings, and which I've loved doing that. And Buffett's, Buffett is the headline guy, but when people go, and if you've been to a Berkshire meeting, you come back talking about Munger. Yeah. You don't talk about
why.
Because he's such a character and he's such a straight shooter, and he just says,
he's so blunt.
He just says it as he sees it. And he's not politically correct, but he's a good person. I think fundamentally he's a very good person, good human being. And there's a lot to be learned from Charlie Munger.
There's a lot to be learned. In fact, the Iron Gate process of investing has Charlie Munger's hands all over it, and Warren Buffett's hands all over it, right? And I don't want to say one and the same, because they're not the same, but their investment philosophy has impact Iron Gate especially.
Yeah, and Charlie has had a huge influence on Warren Buffett and his investment approach. Our last podcast we did a few weeks ago, we talked about how Warren Buffett was originally he was a cigar butt investor. We talked about picking up free cigars on the sidewalk that had been puffed, and there was only one or two puffs. It's the analogy of picking something up for free, and then you get some use out of it
from a cheap stock.
Yeah. You buy it. You basically buy it for nothing. It's a value investing approach. And the analogy with the cigar butt. Munger really, that's how Buffett invested early on. Munger really influenced Buffett in buying quality businesses, buying great businesses. And that has and because of that, that's influenced Iron Gate. And that's our philosophy, is to buy great businesses.
Yep. In fact, there's 5 things that we want to talk about today. How Charlie Munger has influenced Iron Gate. And the first one is he always talked about continuous learning. Explain what that means, continuous learning, and why that's important, Brian.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, great principle. Munger has all kinds of great ideas and teachings that he subscribes to and believes, and life lessons, and he calls them mental models, is what he calls them. He has all these mental models that he uses in life that helps you be successful. And one of these is continuous learning. And a good example of this that I heard him talk about, he says Warren Buffett was a continuous learning machine. He always was learning. He was always reading. That's one of the things about Buffett and Munger that I think set them apart from most people, is they are constantly reading, constantly learning.
Still.
And here you have two guys in their 90s, and it's amazing how they can pull facts. Their brains were so sharp and so quick And because I think they exercised their brain and they were continuously learning.
They're not watching CNBC all day. They're reading 5 to 8 hours a day, continually learning about different businesses and a lot more than that, sharpening their mind.
Absolutely. My dad talks about, uh, you know, watching TV is like chewing gum. I mean, it doesn't get you anywhere. You just chew, you know, it's there's nothing to it. There's it doesn't get you anywhere. And I think when you're reading and they're reading quality books, trying to learn, you know, Buffett was so focused on investment, but Munger was on investments and kind of a one-track mind with investments. Munger is a very diversified thinker. He has all kinds of interests. And you know, you look at the net worth of Buffett versus Munger, there's a big difference. Munger was a multi-billionaire, but Buffett was, you know, his net worth is significantly more because of his focus on investing.
Yep. Continual learning. I'd say at Iron Gate, we're constantly, that's one of the things we love to do, is constantly read and discuss between the two of us, and Spencer and Dan and everybody else is hey, what did we learn today? Here's an interesting article, Brian. Read this. Here's a different company, Brian. Check this out. You send it back. I mean, it's that continual learning process.
It's part of the process. And I people often ask me, you know, or we talk about when we do a research on a particular company or industry. The way I think about it is I've been doing research for 30 plus years, and that's continuous learning. And that it's so if I'm doing research, say on Home Depot, well, I've been reading and investing or reading about that industry for the last 20, 30 years, you know, from time to time. And so it is continuous learning, and hopefully it's cumulative learning, and you can build upon that. And I think that's very important to be a good investor, is to continuously learn about different things. And the world's always changing. You have to continuously learn to get better.
And that leads to the number 2 thing that we learned from Charlie Munger, which is opportunity comes to the prepared mind. How does that work with the first thing that we talked about, and how does that, like, tell me about Iron Gate with that opportunity comes to the prepared mind?
A lot of times opportunity, there's a short window of opportunity to take advantage of that specific opportunity. And if your mind is not prepared, if you're not ready to act when that opportunity or window of opportunity opens up to you, you miss it. And so that's what I think, that's part of what Munger's means there, is you have to be prepared and ready for when that opportunity, the window of opportunity opens to you.
So an example of this would be, we're learning, we're researching companies. We find and have a list of companies that we want to own, and we have a price at which we want to own them because we're constantly learning and studying, and then the opportunity comes because we're preparing our minds and hopefully our portfolios to take advantage of those opportunities that come around. If we did not continuously learn, we wouldn't be prepared to take advantage of the opportunity.
Right. And I think it also applies to the businesses we already own. For example, we own a business, stock price goes down. We haven't stayed up with our learning or understanding the business. That opens up the window of opportunity of mistake, you know, making a mistake because we haven't continuously learned and kept up and understand the business like we should. So I think it works both ways.
Yep. Yeah. There was a company that fell to our buy price a month ago, and it was at our buy price for probably 3 hours. And we knew we wanted to buy more, so we bought it, and that opportunity, gone.
It's gone, yeah.
So you got to be prepared. All right, the third thing, and I love this one because I love how blunt Munger is, diversification. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to throw a quote at you, and you tell me, what do you think, or summarize this for me, okay? Munger says, I think it's much easier to find 5 businesses to own than it is to find 100. By the way, I call it diversification. And I'm way more comfortable owning 2 or 3 stocks, which I think I know something about and where I think I have an advantage.
Yeah.
So what does he mean by diversification? And the fact, I mean, how did he manage his portfolio? Did he own 700 stocks? Did he own
No.
500? Did he own 100?
He owned concentrated portfolio of companies or businesses. And the concept is something that we utilize at Irongate. I mean, we own more than 3 companies, but relative to the industry, we have a concentrated portfolio. And it's the whole idea is you concentrate your money with your best ideas. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, but it flies in the face of academia.
So here's what he says. He says a lot of people think that if they have 100 stocks, they're investing more professionally than if they only had 4 or 5. I regard this as insanity, says Munger.
Who knows? What person knows a lot about their 90th or 100th best idea, or even the 50th, or even the 30th for that matter? I mean, can you know a lot about 30 different companies? It's difficult, and can you really keep track of them? I think that's a great concept, but that flies right in the face of the general
of academia
and Wall Street. I mean,
what did he say? And this isn't one of the bullets, but what did he always say about academia? I mean, not summarize.
Well, he's pretty critical of what was he's for example very critical of how they teach investing and how to be a good investor and how to value a business. Very critical of that. Now he did. In fact, I just saw a quote recently where he talks about they teach accounting pretty good. They teach finance pretty good, marketing. I mean, they teach. But when it comes to investing and investment banking and things like that,
they make it so complicated,
right? And it's kind of silly, right?
All right. The fourth thing is when to buy and when to sell. Okay, and I think it's really easy to buy. I think it's harder to sell. And this is what he says. He says we're partial to putting out large amounts of money where we won't have to make another decision. If you buy something because it's undervalued. He's talking about the cigar butt mentality that you talked about earlier.
Right.
If you buy something because it's undervalued, then you have to think about selling it when it approaches your calculation of intrinsic value. That's hard, says Munger. But if you buy a few great companies, then you can sit on your ass. That's a good thing, says Munger.
Yeah, it is a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's 100% Irongate's philosophy. I mean, we want to buy investments that we hopefully don't ever have to sell. That's the idea behind it.
He says you shouldn't be buying stocks that you need to sell in the first place. If you buy high quality compounders and forget about them, they will generate returns year after year without the requirement for you to spend extra time and effort assessing to try to decide when to sell.
Yeah.
That's so different than what you hear anywhere else.
Very different. Now, we do sell on occasion, but it's usually because
there's something else to buy.
Either there's something else to buy, or we feel like that investment no longer works for us. That it's not a forever business. Either we misunderstood it or we chalk it up to a mistake. I mean, that's when we sell generally. But usually when we go into a business, the idea is we would love to own this business forever. I mean, that's ideally what we want to own, is a forever business that has a long runway of growth ahead of it. He talks about compounder. We want companies that can compound your money over a long period of time. It's the best way to invest. And if you look at the true wealth, the wealthiest people in the world, those people owned assets that were able to compound their money over a long period of time.
I had a client ask me the other day, he said, hey, this particular business has had a good year. Should we take some profits off the table? What would your response there be, Brian?
Well, we usually discourage it.
Why?
Say why? If it's a good business,
it's going to continue to compound.
Right. 3 years.
You can only compound your wealth if you're invested in great businesses.
Yeah.
Why destroy that.
And I always think about it in terms of, okay, let's go out 3 years, 5 years from now. Do you feel like these shares the value of this company will be more higher in 3 years or
Yeah.
5 years from now? If it is, why would you sell it today?
Yeah. Why
If
would
you know it's going to go to, say X, higher value at 5 years from now, and it's, some lower value today, but in the meantime, it may go up or down, but eventually that's a very hard game to play, you know, and we just want to own companies that will compound wealth over time.
last bullet, number 5.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. If it's
What do you mean? What does he mean?
that's our number one rule. Our investing rule is if we don't understand it, we just
Don't
aren't
do it.
interested. We're not,
Yeah.
and that's right in line with that principle is keep it simple. We want to own businesses that we can understand, that are straightforward. If it's super complicated or you can't understand it, I mean, a great example of this is Bitcoin. Like, tell me anybody that can put a value or tell me what Bitcoin's worth.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's not simple.
I-
And usually complicated things, there's if there's things that can go wrong with complicated things. We like simple things to understand that just make sense.
Buy great businesses.
Buy great businesses.
And let them compound your wealth. I think so you keep it simple as far as making sure you understand things to invest in, but you also keep it simple. I mean, you read a Morningstar magazine, and there's sharp ratios, and there's all these matrix, you got to get on the right risk curve and all this crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, beta.
Buy great businesses at great prices. Yes, beta, all that trash.
It's dumb.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
But Wall Street doesn't like to keep it simple because they like to justify
their fees
in themselves.
Yeah.
So the last thing I'll say is this. Those are the 5 things that we believe that has, I mean, there's many, many more that Munger has taught us, but those 5 things specifically have impacted IronGate in a big, big way. The 6th thing, which is just what we wanted to end with, is a quote that he recently said on greed and envy. And this one stuck out to me. He said, "The world is not driven by greed. It's driven by envy." And he said at the end of his life, "I have conquered envy in my own life. I don't envy anybody. I don't give a damn what somebody else has. But other people are driven crazy by it." What is he talking about?
Yeah, that seems like our world is full of envy. People are upset because their neighbor has a nicer car, a better home, or something like that, and that drives people nuts. And so the inequality in the world is really driven. The feeling of inequality is driven by envy. And you think about the standard of living of people in this world is increased. In fact, I was just looking at a statistic. We can go back 100 years. 100 years ago, half the world's population was in extreme poverty. Today, it's less than 10%. But yet people are more unhappy today than they've ever been because of envy. I think it really boils down to envy. People are envious of their neighbor or their neighbor's dog or their donkey or whatever.
Yeah.
And
I guess I don't really. I think, and I don't know why, but I don't have much envy in my own life. I want everybody to just be happy and have all that they want. And if it's more than I have, because that's what they want, that's great. I have what I need, right? But it does drive people crazy about it, and it results in bad investment decisions as well, bad business decisions.
For sure.
The world is driven crazy by it.
Yeah, I think it ties into also one of my favorite teachings of Munger, and he says that to be happy in life, you need to lower your expectations.
Yes,
which I love.
Yes,
and they say the Danish are the happiest country in the world, and it's because they have really low expectations. But I think there's a lot to be. I have a lot of Danish ancestry. I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, it sounds like, okay, that's kind of funny and silly, but actually, if you think about it,
makes sense.
It makes a total sense, and it's partly envy there. People are envious of, they want this higher standard of living, and just keep it simple.
Yep.
eliminate envy from your life. There's so many life lessons that Munger taught that we haven't even discussed here. These are really the investment principles that have really influenced Iron Gate. But there's a lot of life lessons. Here's a book called Poor Charlie's Almanac.
One of the best.
A great book. There's a lot of really good life lessons in there and investment lessons. And it's really, Benjamin Franklin wrote
Benjamin Graham.
Poor Charlie.
Oh. Yeah.
Poor Charlie, but Poor Richard's Almanac.
Yeah.
And that's this book is written
Charles,
in memory of that and
gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But here's what I love, Brian. I just got off the call with Matthew. He did a financial plan, actually for a good friend of mine. And a year ago, they had a 0% probability of retiring. They made a few adjustments in their financial plan. Now they're sitting at 85% if they stay on this path.
Yeah.
There's nothing professionally that makes me more happy than that.
Yeah.
To where you can help somebody accomplish their financial goals. That's the opposite of envy. And I know what Charlie Munger was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Put them on the right path.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. Anyway, long live Charlie. Rest in peace, Charlie.
Yeah.
Yep. But he has impacted Iron Gate for sure. And I'm sure you'll be out in Omaha seeing Warren.
Yeah, I hope to go back to Omaha again. The first weekend in May is the Berkshire meeting. Yeah. It's every year, but hopefully we'll go out again.
Yep. Continuous learning. Opportunity comes to those with a prepared mind. Diversification, when to buy, when to sell, and keep it simple.
Yeah.
Are those things we learned from Charlie Munger.
Good stuff.
With that, everybody, until next time, bye now.